Okay. Well, Kamui, you did mention Kaguya, and I'm really, really happy you did, because I'm ready to talk about Kaguya. So, Kamui, bro, I'm sick of playing these games, okay? Kaguya didn't fuse with shit. Change my mind. I'm done playing around. I'm not pretending anymore, okay, Kamui? Screw it. It's literally the worst interpretation. It ruins all of the narrative, power scaling, lore consistency in the world, and the visuals. And yes, I can explain each and every one of these if you need me to. Kishimoto was just wrong. I don't care if the Kaguya filler is inconsistent in some regards. It just is the superior model and just does work better, at the very least in this one specific regard. And I refuse to hear otherwise. Get over it.
Okay. I have a potential compromise answer if you're willing to just hear me out entirely and see if you like it.
Okay.
So this isn't going to change a ton, but what it is going to do actually, though, is make Boruto and Naruto a little bit more cohesive. Rather than Kaguya fusing with the Divine Tree to become the Ten Tails, how would you feel about Kaguya just became the Ten Tails? So, in this manner, there's a Divine Tree on Earth. She plucked the fruit, blah, blah, blah. There's a Divine Tree. Separate from that Divine Tree, Kaguya becomes the Ten Tails. As we know in Boruto lore, this is going to be consistent in Naruto. The Divine Tree is the final form of the Ten Tails. So when it becomes the Divine Tree, again, that's a new Divine Tree. It's not weird back and forth lore where it's the final form, but it's technically not. It just is going to go Ten Tails to Divine Tree. Kiyotsuki would become Ten Tails, so they have more Ten Tails, they get more chakra fruits. This is basically my Otsutsuki theory. The only difference is there's no fusing going on, they just become the Ten Tails. That's for why she would do this for Haguro Mahamura. I don't know, man. Ignore that for a moment. The idea is basically she's not fusing. If she's fusing with anything, she's fusing with her chakra fruit, but she's just turning into the Ten Tails. How do you feel about that as an idea?
So, I guess it's technically better than the manga, but I still do like the anime interpretation best, because I do think Hagoromo and Hamura need to fight Mother Kaguya, just like Naruto and Sasuke did.
So what if they know Kaguya is the Ten Tails in this case?
I feel like it doesn't count, because I feel like Hagoromo and Hamura need to do the same thing that Naruto and Sasuke did. It needs to be repeating the same thing. They need to touch Kaguya. And I mean Kaguya. I mean Kaguya. I already know what you're going to say. So yeah.
Okay. This is absolutely stupid, but I want to bring it up anyway. What if, because we know the original story is when they fight the Ten Tails, Hagoromo seals it in himself. Later on, it's when they do the ghetto statue stuff. What if, again, this is goofy, they fight the Ten Tails, he absorbs into himself, then when he goes to extract it, out comes Kaguya, and they have to use the Six Fashion Draku Densei on Kaguya.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think the anime just does it best. I don't know if there is an interpretation better than the anime in terms of the Kaguya fight. I just like the fact that Kaguya is fighting alongside the Ten Tails in the same way that like Madara and Obito were. And in this case, again, so
okay,
that is...
Okay, then I don't think the anime does it best, because in that case, Hagoromo should become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki in the Kaguya fight, not do whatever the hell he's doing with the Sick Factor. He should just do the Jinchuriki thing and the Kaguya thing separately.
I mean, that's an aspect I don't really care about as much. I'm fine with it either way. Either Kaguya fights with the Ten Tails, or Hagoromo becomes a 10,000 Jinchuriki and fights with Hamura to fight Kaguya. My question there is, how does Hamura scale up? That's crazy. But either way, I mean, it's reminiscent of Madara fighting alongside the Nine Tails, and you got Kaguya fighting alongside the Ten Tails against her enemies. So it's
but then we have this question. How strong are Hagoromo and Hamura pre-Tentos Jinchuriki? So Hagoromo Tentos Jinchuriki just is the strongest of the verse, because in this case, you basically have Hagoromo versus Kaguya and Hamura versus the Ten Tails. The 2v2.
Yeah, in which case I guess Hamura is just like being a Mito, just distracting the Nine Tails or whatever Mito did for Hagoromo.
Even though it's actually the reverse because Mito absorbed Kurama in the end, and that's what
Yeah.
Hagoromo was gonna do.
Yeah. So you could, I mean, I guess it's fine to have Hamura fight Kaguya in this case and Hagoromo fight the Ten Tails. I mean, that's sort of what the anime was going for anyways, with Kaguya just like brainwashing Hamura. And then Hagoromo had to kill Hamura. So that could just happen like during that time. I mean, if you're fine.
I don't know, but
I mean, I at the
part
very
of the
least,
problem is,
yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, the real problem is because Boruto exists. My heart wants to find whatever solution works best to mingle Naruto and Boruto both, and which is why I just presented the Kaguya just turns into Nintendo's thing. Because the anime thing, I don't think feels the best with Boruto stuff, but what you said though can make sense for Naruto on its own. So it kind of depends on how you're looking at it.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we can get into that last of how Kaguya turning into the Ten Tails would make the most sense with Boruto, but I think the anime makes the most sense. Kaguya's controlling the Ten Tails in the same way that Madara and Obito do. It's the same way that Jigen could do it, hypothetically. And I can't imagine how Jigen could or would turn into the Ten Tails himself. Again, narratively, I think it just should be this way anyways. Power scaling, again, for the narrative, the argument is that Hagoromo and Hamura, really, Naruto and Sasuke do the exact same thing Hagoromo and Hamura does, especially with Kaguya's internal monologue when Naruto and Sasuke.
So that makes me think that she's just conscious as the Ten Tails, but then the Ten Tails supposed to not be conscious. I don't know, bro.
Exactly. Power scaling wise, Kaguya's supposed to be stronger than the Ten Tails anyways. It just doesn't make sense for her to fuse with the Ten Tails rather than fight separately with it. In my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, but then it's also weird that Hagoromo and Hamura can just beat that combo. I don't know, man. Like, no matter what, it's just...
Yeah, like...
If anything, Kaguya should have just absorbed the Ten Tails to become the Ten Tails Jinchuriki.
I agree, yeah. Exactly.
So, like, it shouldn't be Hagoromo, it should be Kaguya.
It's like, okay, either Kaguya is nerfing herself or amping the Ten Tails. Either way, if Kaguya is stronger than Ten Tails, it should just be a mix between the two. Somewhere, like, if Kaguya is a 30 and the Ten Tails is a 20, then their combined power should be a 25. Just be in between. In my opinion, anyway. It's the way they did it, at least.
Yeah, but then why would she do that? It's just weird.
Exactly. It does make sense. But if you fight alongside it, then it just is purely additive. It's 30 plus 20 for a total battle power of 50. So are we really...
Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with the original story that when you plop the fruit, it just turns into a Ten Tails and it wants its chakra fruit back. And they can just fight. Like, Hagoromo and Hamura, hypothetically, could just fight Kaguya. And then later the Ten Tails gets mad and they fight the Ten Tails separately too.
I mean, you could do that, but I feel like there's no story behind fighting the Ten Tails, in my opinion, that way. But I mean, either way.
There's no story fighting the Ten Tails no matter what.
Yeah, but I like it in the Kaguya fight if you're gonna do it at all, in my opinion. I think it just works with the rest of the story the best that way. It's not the most important thing in the world. Again, I think the important thing is the Kaguya fight itself.
It's weird that the Divine Tree wants to protect Kaguya. The Ten Tails, bitch, they don't like the Otsutsuki. They're not doing that.
Yeah, but if Kaguya just is controlling the Ten Tails, similar to how Sasuke was controlling the Tail
other Otsutsuki don't seem to do.
Kaguya has a Rene Sharingan. I'll at least give her that. Plus, again, I think it just works with Naruto's story with Madara being able to genjutsu the Tailed Beast. Sasuke does it. Sasuke's using Ninja's Arrow even. Like, they're doing a lot of cycle stuff. They're defeating Kaguya.
I see what you're saying with that.
I definitely
Madara's like Kaguya is doing the same thing. Okay, I see what you're saying. She would just be controlling the Ten Tails like that. But except she's not controlling the Ten Tails because she's controlling the Divine Tree. Why is he even becoming the Ten Tails?
Yeah. But
Because it plucked the fruit, I guess. Okay, what about this? Okay, this is getting really ridiculous, but when you pluck the fruit, it reverts back into a Ten Tails. Kaguya then, with their new powers, controls the Ten Tails. And so it wants to fight Kaguya, like Kurama wanting to fight Madara, but she controls it to fight Hagoromo and Hammer instead.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. I still do like the anime with when Kaguya gets the fruit when she's pregnant and how that whole story plays out. I just like that story in general. I mean, you could have a second fruit be plucked, but I feel like that sort of goes against Boruto then.
No, it would just be the same thing. Like the only difference is that the Divine Tree would just become the Ten Tails a little bit faster than it does. It would just become the Ten Tails and wants to fight Kaguya, and she just immediately controls it, makes it go somewhere. But then you don't have the tree thing with the Hagoromo. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There's no perfect way to do it. Then, sorry.
Yeah, well, okay. So would you agree with me that, in my opinion, hypothetically, let's just like double the combatant. So you have Kaguya plus the Ten Tails versus Kaguya fused with the Ten Tails.
Real quick before you ask that question, just remember your question, re-ask it. Okay, because in the Kaguya filler, for some reason, the people in the Infinite Tsukiyomi were released from the Ten Tails. Remember that? They came out of the Ten Tails. What if we just write it to where the Ten Tails is just like sleeping, and when they're, going to the Divine Tree, Kaguya's sacrificing to the Divine Tree, he's just sacrificing it to the Ten Tails.
When did they come out of the Ten Tails?
It's like near the end of the fight or something. I don't remember the specific scene, but I just remember like they're like in the Ten Tails. In the Hagoromo filler Kaguya fight arc.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, either way. I definitely like the Divine Tree, considering that's the Infinite Tsukiyomi used at the War Arc of Naruto. I like that better. But you could have it turn into a Divine Tree at the end. I mean, either way. It could, yeah, after defeating Kaguya, it could just revert back into the Divine Tree. You could do a bunch of stuff. It doesn't really matter how you get there.
Why would it do that after defeating Kaguya?
Let's just say that Kaguya is only like temporarily changing its state, and its true state while it's transformed is the Divine Tree. She's only de-transforming it so it can actually fight. Because yes, whereas the Divine Tree is a higher evolution form, let's be honest, the Ten Tails is a better fighter than the Divine Tree.
Yeah.
So, like, I think maybe the Divine Tree is technically better in some regards. Like, it can wrap people up. I don't think the Ten Tails can do that.
Actually, bro. When Obito was doing it, he's freaking shooting Biju Bomb flower things. I don't know, Kaguya should have just done that.
I mean, whereas, yes, the Divine Tree can't move, the Ten Tails can, so it's like different aspects to this, I guess. But either way. So, okay. For my question, be honest. Kaguya plus the Ten Tails. Okay? So, the combatant on the left. It was just right there. Where was it? Kaguya plus the Ten Tails versus Kaguya fused with the Ten Tails. Who wins?
Well, they both lost to Hagoromo. Well, okay, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but the fused Kaguya one, and I'm gonna give you an argument. You're gonna think I'm ridiculous. So, as we see in the filler, Hagoromo and Hamura just did beat Kaguya. They 6-patched Shibaku Tensei sealed her. In the original story of events, Hagoromo and Hamura couldn't beat the Ten Tails. That's why he sealed it inside himself. meaning the
Okay.
fused Ten Tails is stronger.
Okay. You can use your in-universe arguments between the anime and the manga. I'm gonna use common sense to say 2v1 Kaguya, who's stronger than the Ten Tails. The Kaguya plus Ten Tails combo is stronger
Well,
than
hold on, Oodie.
Kaguya
Hold
fused with the
on,
Ten Tails.
Oodie. What if Kaguya was only stronger than the Ten Tails Naruto saw? The Ten Tails Hagoromo fought was stronger than what Naruto saw, and it was stronger than Kaguya.
Okay. I mean, do you really think that's the case, though?
Based off the arguments I presented, it just might have to be.
Okay. Either way, regardless of how you want to spin it, you agree with me, this is ridiculous.
Well, those Jubi blasts were strong.
The Ten Tails has Jubi Blast either way. At least in one case, you get an extra Kaguya out of it. So I'm gonna go with the side that has Kaguya fighting with the Ten Tails instead of the side that has no Kaguya and just the Ten Tails.
What?
Crazy, I know. I feel like that also
Something's
covers
gone into you.
more consistency.
Are you feeling okay?
I mean, let's find out.
Okay, you cut out on me for a little bit there.
Yeah, my internet went down. I'll be surprised if stream is still going, but hey, I won't hate it. I guess we're good. Wow, I totally expected stream to end there, in which case I was going to say that's a good place to end it anyway.
That was
but, hey.
yeah.
Okay, well, I guess while we're still going, let's get all we can out of... Okay, so... lore consistency world-wise. Kaguya fusing with the Ten Tails is stupid, considering the Ten Tails is the earlier form of the Divine Tree. The Divine Tree that Kaguya fused with to then turn into the Ten Tails. Can we stop pretending like that Divine Tree wasn't a Ten Tails before turning into the Divine Tree?
Yeah, I know. It's weird. That's why I was saying like the separate Ten Tails idea, because
Yeah.
it is just weird that like I don't want so because I'm fine with Kaguya merging with the tree to become like in some aspects, Kaguya merging with a tree to become this humanoid tree beast thing, that kind of makes sense. But that the divine tree being the final form of that, it gets weird. Like it reverts back to evolve forward. Doesn't seem like it's making progress.
What makes extra weird is the fact that this just is one of the forms the War Arc Ten Tails takes.
Yeah, exactly. Like
doesn't make sense. So here's my thing. Why this really irks me more than anything is because I constantly see a stray comment. This is a fan or two. They're always like, oh, well, Kaguya fused with the Divine Tree to make it into the Ten Tails. I wonder which Otsutsuki is fused with Jigen's Ten Tails. That's not how that works. That's not what a Ten Tails is. Stop it. Not all Otsutsukis are Ten Tails. Stop it. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You're dumb. I hate you.
no, not necessarily. They don't necessarily have to have fused, depending on how it works, but they might all be Otsutsuki.
But they're pretending like every Ten Tails that is currently actively a Ten Tails is an Otsutsuki that fused with the Divine Tree to become a Ten Tails. As if Ten Tails just don't exist.
May have formed. Okay. How do you. Okay. Ignoring fusion, where do you stand on the idea that all Ten Tails are Otsutsuki, regardless of how they got there?
Yeah, genetically, I'm like 50-50 on it. I wouldn't mind either way.
Well, in this case, genetic society, like, I mean, like, they just specifically, they press, the idea being, they press a button and they turn into a Ten-Tails in every case.
Oh.
Where are you on that idea?
It depends how they do it. I don't prefer it.
Because I've been waiting for like a year and a half on this video. Now, again, how much of this is Kodachi writing? How much of this is Ikimoto making something that doesn't make sense? Who knows? Taking things into just a little brief sneak peek. Taking the artistic depiction into account, it makes absolutely no sense that the Ten-Tails' chakra overlaid onto Jigen would miraculously be Ishiki's chakra. Because it makes the horn come out. Jigen doesn't need to fill the karma seal. It's got plenty of chakra. He doesn't need to activate V2 to absorb jutsu or chakra or anything. Why is the horde coming out if it isn't coincidentally Ishiki's chakra in that Ten-Tails? Because every similar situation of this sort of thing happening, it's the same chakra. Naruto resonating with another Kurama thing, like Sora on the filler arc. Same idea. Now, Ikimoto can be drawing things that make no sense, and that can be your argument, and that's fine. But if we assume it does make sense, my answer is that Ten-Tails. Now, you're going to ask, how the hell did we get here? Leave that for another time. The only way it can make sense, keeping Naruto lore consistent and the art consistent, is that Ten-Tails is an Ishiki Ten-Tails.
Well, that's not the only way it can make sense.
How else can it make sense?
Well, first of all, Ishiki's chakra is just inside of the karma seal, which is on Jigen, and so you can just get to any horn state at any time through that.
No.
But
why is the horde coming out? Because of absorbing Ten-Tails chakra.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was going to say, but you could still make an argument there. But either way, I'm not going to make that argument. I'm going to argue that I think it's absolutely plausible that really anyone, but I'll just say Otsutsuki for this, just to make it simple, can absorb any source of chakra from anywhere and then just convert it into their own chakra. In fact, you could argue that anyone, not just Otsutsuki, could just do that.
Okay, but Ishiki doesn't need to do that. That's not even the point. We've already discussed this with the Jigen fight thing. The point isn't to convert it into Ishiki's chakra. That's the thing that's killing Jigen. He actively would want to not do that.
Okay.
Now, that's an argument you can use against what I just said. And if you don't say it, I'll say it.
The fact that he would be absorbing Ishiki's chakra from the Ten-Tails.
Yeah, so why is he doing that?
Exactly.
I don't know, man. The Ten-Tails effect.
Well, do you think he's activating the horn there, or do you think it's just naturally coming out?
I think the horn's just coming out. It's like a resonating.
Okay, in which case, do you think he could have, like, if he wanted to, do you think he could have had the horn just not come out?
Well, no, because I think it is coming out because, I mean, maybe he could have suppressed it if he was trying really hard, but like I think the point is that the horn and everything's coming out because it just naturally is coming out.
Okay. And so
but he might have been able to purposefully suppress it or something.
And so just addressing the elephant in the room, don't have to stay on this, but just acknowledging the fact that this was absolutely 100% done for artist depiction for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ignoring that. Just ignoring the reason that it's there. In universe.
That's why I said, like, it's if you want to make it make sense in the universe.
Okay.
This is the explanation. If you're going to ignore, like, if you want to just say, Ikimoto wasn't thinking about that, and he was just doing it because he wants to foreshadow Ishiki, I understand that. but then it does technically make no sense. And I'm not going to say it ruins anything. It's cool when it happens, but it doesn't make sense that it's happening otherwise.
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think it's probably just simple, and Kodachi wasn't thinking about it in this specific detail or depth.
Oh,
Because
Kodachi might have been.
I can
I don't
imagine
think Ikimoto.
Borushiki doing the same thing. If Borushiki absorbed Kurama's chakra from Naruto versus Boro, and his horn grew longer, I can imagine the same idea. If he absorbed Kawaki's chakra when Kawaki did the fireball fire style jutsu on him at the end of this arc, I could imagine the same thing. A horn could just
Well,
get long. I
it
could just
didn't
imagine something like
happen. And whenever Boruto absorbs 50,000 jutsu, his horn doesn't start randomly growing out.
that. No, but you get my idea in terms of that. Like, I'm not saying it did happen. I'm saying if Kodachi wanted to,
Yeah, I
could
can
see
get
him
your
writing
idea.
it.
You can imagine it. But because it didn't happen,
I'm not saying did or didn't. I'm saying could or couldn't.
yeah, I know, I get it. You can imagine Ikimoto drawing that, but that isn't what happened.
I'm not saying I can use my imagination to see it in my head. I'm saying in universe, I think it could happen.
It's never happened.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to happen, or for us to see it happen, to speculate on whether it could or couldn't.
So what's the difference maker for when it doesn't happen?
I mean, maybe the Otsutsuki just chooses how they want to use the chakra.
So Jiken wanted to use the chakra to make a horn so he could fight no one and put it away immediately.
Not what I meant. But, like, for an example, Borushiki chose to convert it into the Rasengan.
Okay, wait. If Borushiki has the choice, why didn't he just put the Kawaki flame chakra into his horn so Boruto didn't wake up?
Well, I think if it's in the horn that's in Boruto's body, Boruto's waking up anyways.
So what would be the benefit of putting in the horn?
It just grows longer. There's no benefit.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think that makes any sense. I think the horn just grows longer because the more of Momoshiki's chakra overlaid onto Boruto's body, the more the horn just does grow. It's just a visual indicator of how much chakra.
I'm not the one who said he's putting the chakra in the horn. That was you putting words in my mouth.
Well, you said you can choose where to put the chakra. So I'm like, it's the other option putting it into the horn. Because their horn isn't growing.
And that was so stupid, I just didn't address it. But either way. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I think that.
I mean, another argument you could make. Now, again, resonance makes no sense because it only seems to apply to Boruto and Kawaki for some weird reason. So you could argue, though, that rather than it being specifically Ishiki's chakra, it could just be any Otsutsuki, and it's just resonating with Ishiki, similar to Boruto Kawaki Karma Seal shenanigans, to where it's basically like karma resonance. You could argue that. But then I'm just still asking, why doesn't code apply? I don't know, but...
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, really what matters to me, ignoring the fact that the fan base irks me with thinking that all Otsutsuki are Tentails, or that Jigen's Tentails, oh, which Otsutsuki is it? Ignoring the Boruto franchise entirely, ignoring any plot consistency, world-building nonsense, schmonsense that should be important. Above all else, the narrative argument is the one I care about the most. Kaguya needs to be Kaguya when she fights Hagoromo and Hamura.
So this is where it's really weird, though. This is where the Naruto manga makes no sense. It just feels like she was Kaguya when she fought Hagoromo and Hamura, but at the same time, they never fought Kaguya.
I know.
Which doesn't make sense.
I know.
It feels like different scenes presented themselves as though it was Kaguya fighting them,
Well,
when
that's
other scenes
why.
clearly indicate it wasn't.
That's honestly, again, I do blame Kishimoto because that's why do you think the anime made it so weird in the first place? It was doing
Yeah,
its
because like
best to make it make sense.
because if you
Inconsistent
specifically
manga.
go to, I think it's chapter 689 or something like that, when the Naruto Sasuke seal Kaguya, they specifically flash back to when Haguro and Hamura did the same thing, and it just clearly makes it seem like um or 690, I guess. They're literally showing like Haguro and Hamura in the same positions. And yes, this
Exactly.
could be Tentil's Kaguya in that scene, but it just feels like it's Kaguya based off that presentation.
Exactly.
And not to mention that when she was losing control to the Tentils, Setsu was freaking out because they made it seem like Kaguya's losing control when that happens and not being Kaguya. So, does Kaguya even remember fighting Haguro and Hamura if she's the Tentils?
So just for like the thematics of this arc, it's the only thing that only makes sense and works. I refuse any other answer. It had to be Kishimoto's intent. Kishimoto just wrote it wrong.
I mean, I agree. He definitely wrote something wrong with the Tentils Kaguya shenanigans.
And here, let me just we've already covered it, but just to cover this last point here, visuals. Need I say more?
Oh, your thing's bugging out on me.
Oh,
Can't
here,
see
let
your
me
screen.
okay. Yeah. Okay, let me just because this is a GIF, so it just doesn't work.
Alright, there we go.
So, Kamui, need I say more? Visual wise.
That's Kaguya.
That is ugly. No, okay? This. Now that's a Kaguya, let me tell
Well,
you.
hold on. Go to
The
the one all
bunny
the way to the
goddess
left. All the way to the
priestess.
left.
What this?
That one, yeah. Click on that one for a second. See, look, it's Kaguya. She's sticking her tongue out to taunt at her two little children, like, you're little children. They're so cute.
Kamui, let me ask you. Visually wise. Which do you prefer?
In what way?
The correct way.
See, Kaguya is supposed to be inhumane. She lost her humanity. There's no greater depiction, symbolic depiction of that than if she's literally a monster.
The Tintels' lips look like Gaara's eyes.
Well, yeah, she has to kiss Tenji somehow.
Listen, I'm just saying. Does this not look inhuman to you? Come on.
Well, does Kabuto look inhuman to you?
Yes. Listen, if Damon and Ada can have a couple stars on their jacket, and that makes them look like they don't even belong to the same franchise, apparently, Kaguya's.
Yeah, that's actually so ridiculous, actually. Yeah, why didn't you just get them hordes and shit?
Exactly. So I'm just saying. The least human in all of Naruto right there. But especially if she's supposed to be mother, I prefer it to look like this than this.
I know.
Like, bro.
So,
Ugh. Hideous. So?
I was trying to think of something.
Okay.
I don't know how I would get to this, but in light okay, so for this, use the Shinju as inspiration, but ignore Boruto. What would you think of the idea that Kaguya is essentially the final form of the Tentails? So it goes the Tentails to the Divine Tree, and somehow that Divine Tree becomes Kaguya, who then gives birth to Hagoromo after the fact. So there just is no Divine Tree or Tentails in the Kaguya versus Hagoromo Hamura fight.
Well, branching off of that, see what I did there? Instead of the Divine Tree itself, what if Kaguya was the fruit? Or Zetsu was the fruit?
Yeah, or something like that, to where, like, trying to think, like, because obviously the whole point is to resurrect Kaguya in the war arc, and then in this case, you need the Divine Tree, which is what's going to become Kaguya. The question is, how would you get the Divine Tree to become Kaguya?
I mean, you're not gonna like me just saying the same thing over and over. I do just like what the anime did, to where the Otsutskis use the Tentails and go planet to planet, and the Tentails is a seedling, and it becomes the parasitic Divine Tree, and it takes all life out of the planet. Then the then the Otsutsuki just take the chakra fruit. Like, I love all that lore, and I feel like if you change one small thing, you gotta change, like, everything in this regard.
Well, that's why I said ignore Boruto for this.
Okay.
Just like I said, you can use Shinju as inspiration for the idea of Divine Trees becoming Otsutsuki, but just ignore all of Boruto. This is a Naruto-only thing.
Still, it matters for Naruto, though, because God Tree wrapping up everyone during Infinite Tsukiyomi. Like, what do we do there? Exactly. There's always a problem. You change one tiny thing, it's the craziest hurricane.
What if Kaguya just used Divine Deep Forest Emergence?
You know, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. I mean, you could do that.
I mean, technically, that's what she did.
This is stupid.
If she's the Divine Tree human thing, she should just be able to make Divine Tree wood anyway.
I mean, if you want to do that. But then what even is the Naruto lore? Like, a tree fell from the sky instead of Kaguya, and then Kaguya is the tree. And in this case, she came alone, but as a tree.
Well...
And then we're just ignoring the entire first episode of Kaguya.
Something would have to just make the tree become Kaguya. I don't know what the something would be.
Again, we're losing the entire, like, land of that conflict of that Kaguya episode, and I love that episode. I love Kaguya just being the priestess or whatever. The goddess of earth. The mother of all chocolate.
Well, I was considering it from a manga-only perspective and ignoring the filler, which I think is where we're having this completely different idea in mind.
The manga's bad, okay? I'm not gonna pretend. It's bad. There's nothing
You're not gonna pretend what?
That the manga's bad.
Yeah, this was a rewrite for the manga that didn't account for the filler in mind, because I wasn't even thinking about it from that perspective.
That's fair. I mean, it's a lot of angles you could go.
But then again, that just means Kaguya is a weak-ass civilian level, and she backstabbed Ishiki if you go with the filler, so... You know, friggin' land of that level.
Yeah, but
and the land of that can beat